What is up, everybody? Welcome to the main event deep dive for this week's main event on UFC Vegas 30. We have Ciryl Gane going against Alexander Volkov, a fight that I'm really looking forward to. Coming off of a decent week last week, me and Uncle Wheezy successfully predicted the Ige Zombie fight. We didn't really see it to that extent. We thought it was a very close fight, slightly edging Zombie, but so far since we've been doing this, we're 2 for 2. Last week's fight was very close. I think this fight's even closer. Like, this fight is a very tough fight to call. We're going to get into the tail of the tape experience, as much stats as we can, and just dive as deep as we can into this matchup and see if we can find any advantages for either fighter here. And then we'll talk some betting as well. But yeah, really looking forward to this fight. What's up, Uncle Wheezy? Are you looking forward to this fight as much as I am? And how'd you do last week?
I'm really looking forward to this one, man. This is, we don't see a whole lot of athletic heavyweights, so, when you see two guys like Volkov and Gane who are both athletic and look really good doing what they're good at, this is going to be an exciting main event. Hopefully Gane doesn't, run from Volkov as much as he did from Rosenstruik, and God, we better hope it's more exciting than that fight. Otherwise, we're going to be pulling our hair out. But last week was pretty good for me. I mean, it was a profitable week. There were some bad beats on my side, but I also kind of cashed a ticket where I felt like I needed a shower afterwards. I had 1.25 units on Parisian, and boy, after that fight was over, I was like, boy, you bet the favorite, and he lost. That's you sucked on that one. But every once in a while, you in the old poker term, you suck out, and I sucked out on that one. Got lucky with Parisian, but I had Vera inside the distance, and man, he was so close so many times to finishing Grant. Props to Davey Grant for being a really, really tough dude. Man, he hung in there, and that was a great fight. Yes. That was a great fight. Vera got off to a slow start, but he almost finished it, and he put on a hell of a performance. And I had Jandiroba by sub 2, and of course she broke Kaneko's arm, but Kaneko, being the really tough woman that she is, refused to tap. And my God, Kaneko Murata, if you don't respect that woman's toughness, I don't know what to I don't know what to tell you at this point. She fought that whole second round with an elbow that wasn't connected to the bone it was supposed to be connected to. That was rough, but I came out ahead. The one DraftKings lineup I had cashed, so I'm thankful to be ahead whenever I am ahead. The bad beats hopefully will go away sometime soon, and we'll start really, really rolling here. But I was happy to cash that bet on Zombie last week. I had a unit on him at plus money, so I was happy to get that one right. And I hope we get this one right too, man. I'm ready for a great heavyweight battle here between a veteran and a new up-and-comer, and I can't wait to get into all the numbers with you, man.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, sounds like you did, pretty well. A couple bad beats, like you mentioned. Could have been a potential monster night if a couple things would have went our way, but it is MMA, and that is the sport we do love. So, I say we get into it this week. We'll talk about the main event right here. Before we get started, if you guys can leave a like on this video, would really, really appreciate that. If you do enjoy this content, please let us know. And yeah, looking forward to the fight. So I'll kind of break it down here. And we're going to start with the tail of the tape for Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov. So we'll start with Ciryl Gane, who is 31 years old. He is 6'4" with an 81-inch reach, fighting out of France. And we have Alexander Volkov, who is 32 years old, 6'7", 80-inch reach, coming out of Russia. So the things that stick out right away is kind of the age for Volkov, because for me personally, man, I thought this guy was like a little bit older. 32 years old, that is very young. For the heavyweight division, and just, we'll take a look at it in a little bit, but the experience this guy has, you'd think that, man, this guy should be older than 32, but no, he's only 32 years old, which, like I said, very young for heavyweights. 80-inch reach for Volkov, which is going to be a 1-inch reach disadvantage, but he does have a 3-inch height advantage here against Ciryl Gane. So we'll kind of take a look at the last couple fights between the two, starting with Ciryl Gane. He got the submission win over Rafael Pessoa. He got the submission win over Dontel Mays, a decision win over Tanner Boser, a knockout win over Junior Dos Santos, and a decision win, which we just saw recently a couple months ago against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And as far as Alexander Volkov, he did lose to Derek Lewis by knockout. He beat Greg Hardy by decision. He lost to Curtis Blades, and then he did beat Walt Harris and Overeem by knockout. So we'll get into more of those fights in a little bit, but first I say we kick it off the stats, starting with the experience here, Weezy.
Yeah, and boy, you want to look for a place where somebody's got an advantage in a fight, and I mean the experience advantage for Volkov here is frankly it's shocking. For a guy who is a young heavyweight at 32 years old, and you think of Gane as the prospect, and you think of Volkov is kind of like the old lion here, and both are correct. But guess what? Volkov's only a year older than him, so he's only a year older than Cyril Gane, but he's got 33 more fights as a pro. He's been doing this for 12 years, and Cyril Gane only for 2. So I found that to be very interesting. The fact that even though Gane's got a Muay Thai background, prior to him being a mixed martial artist, this guy Volkov has been doing it since he was 19 years old. He's got 33 wins. He's got 358 minutes of cage time. This is a massive, massive experience advantage for Alexander Volkov here. And Gane has looked incredibly great so far in his 8 professional fights as a mixed martial artist. But boy, this is a step up. And then when we look at the UFC experience, we got 9 fights for Volkov and we got 5 for Gane. So, if you were to just look at the UFC experience, you'd say, okay, yeah, Volkov's got Gane experience, but hey, Gane's got 5 fights too. But man, it's before the UFC, when this guy Volkov had 32 professional fights. And when he walked into the UFC, he was already 25-6. This is a guy who is incredibly experienced. We look at the average fight time, 13.31 minutes, 14.26 for Volkov. So, yeah, man, we got started with experience, and boy, did experience tell a tale to us early, huh?
That jumps out at you to say the least. The 8 fights of Cyril Gane, and then the 41 fights of Alexander Volkov. And that just goes to show, man, like Volkov is going to have a really, really big experience edge in this fight. I think another thing to mention, and this is more from like a betting perspective that we'll get into later in the video here. The average fight time. You think of heavyweights, you think of finishes, early finishes, but no, Volkov has an average fight time of 14 minutes and 26 seconds, and Cyril Gane has an average fight time of 13 minutes and 31 seconds. So, in terms of that, I do think this fight does get extended. I do think it gets into the later rounds, possibly even a decision as well. But yeah, as far as the experience goes, it's favored massively in Volkov. It's not debatable, and can't wait to get into these next stats here.
And so now we got to talk finish stats here, because this is what gives us our paths to victory for these guys, and it kind of gives us an idea of who might have an advantage should the fight stay standing, who has an advantage if it hits the ground. So we look at Cyril Gane here, in 8 fights, we got a 38% sub rate, 38% knockout rate. So, he's basically finishing 75% of his fights, 3/8 by sub, 3/8 by KO. So, even though he's young, even though, we're only seeing 82.5 minutes of cage time as a pro, he's finishing fights in a number of different ways. He's winning by decision too, so this guy can finish you a number of different ways. And in the UFC, 5 wins, 2 of them by sub, 1 of them by KO, 2 by decision. So he's showing that same diversity inside the UFC. But when we look at, Volkov, we see somebody that's more one-dimensional with his finish stats at 64% by KO and 9% by sub in his career. So 73% of his 33 wins have been finished inside the distance. And if we look at his 7 wins in the UFC, 4 of them have been finished by KO. So that's really impressive. Even in the heavyweight division, when you're finishing more than half of your wins against high-level opponents too in the UFC by KO, that is something that should open your eyes. So Gane has shown more than one way to finish, while Volkov has been a little more knockout dependent. And since Cyril Gane has never lost a fight, we can't talk about how he's been finished. We got Volkov with 8 career losses, 2 of them by knockout, 2 of them by submission. But if I go into, I've got the Tapology page here for Volkov. You talked about it when we were doing Stat Diggers. If we want to look at the times that that this guy lost by submission, July 22nd, 2010 to Maxim Grishin, actually, who was a UFC veteran. And then he lost by armbar in his 3rd professional fight back in 2009 to the venerable Ahmed Sultanov. So even though Volkov has been finished twice by submission, the last time that he was finished, it was 2010. So he is definitely a very, very tough guy to finish. And I do see that average fight time being a big deal here. And I think it's pointing to a potential over, because Ciryl Gane has never been knocked out before. So Volkov is going to need to knock him out. And, Ciryl Gane has finished some guys by submission, but nobody of Alexander Volkov's grappling ability. So I really don't see Gane really getting this fight to the ground. And we'll talk about that more when we discuss the grappling stats. I do see this being more of a striking battle. So let's get into those striking statistics and see if we can find an advantage either way. And if we look at the offensive numbers here, we kind of see that, these numbers are very, very similar. Gane, 5.04 landed out of 9.11 attempted for 55% accuracy, while we got Volkov with 5.35 out of 9.12 attempted for a 58.72% accuracy. So the amount of strikes they're throwing per minute is basically identical. Volkov is landing a little bit more with a little bit higher accuracy. In terms of power, both are below 1% knocking down per total significant strikes landed. But Gane's at 0.6 and Volkov is at 0.44. So, 0.45 knockdowns per 15 minutes for Gane, 0.35 for Volkov. Volkov does seem to be hitting a lot harder these days than he was early in his UFC career, and especially before he got to the UFC. But, I think that the power numbers are probably pretty similar for these guys. Where we're going to see a difference is in the defense, though. We see Ciryl Gane is landing 5.04 significant strikes per minute, but only absorbing 1.85. So he's hitting his opponents more than twice as much as they're hitting him. And we see Volkov as well, 5.35 landed, only 2.68 absorbed. So he's landing exactly twice as much on his opponents as his opponents are landing on him. So, but the difference is in the striking defense. 69% striking defense for Ciryl Gane. He is this guy, you try to hit him and he's not there. Volkov, a little bit more pedestrian striking defense at 56%. As far as how chinny these guys are, Ciryl Gane's never been knocked down so far. And Volkov has been knocked down on about 0.6% of the significant strikes landed against him. So that means he's been knocked down twice in 344 strikes absorbed. Not a high number for the heavyweight division, where you certainly have a lot of heavy hitters. And, Volkov's faced Derek Lewis, he's faced Greg Hardy, Walt Harris, Alistair Overeem, and then there's some names before that too. So Volkov isn't what I would call chinny. Neither of these guys are, but we really haven't seen Gane be tested quite yet. But these striking numbers are pretty even. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think they're pretty even as well. But yeah, what sticks out to me, man, that 69% striking defense, like you just don't see that all that much in the UFC. But we got to kind of remember he is fighting a lesser level of competition. I know we'll dive deeper into the competition, but still, I mean, that's very, very impressive. I did want to talk about something in the finish stats. Like a lot of people think that, Volkov has, pillow fist and all that. And the guy has 22 knockout wins on his record, 22 knockout wins and 33 wins, which is very impressive. And another thing I wanted to point out, I think you touched on it a little bit, that he is hitting harder nowadays. It looks like that Volkov, since that Blades fight, he's really packed on some extra weight, some extra muscle, and it looks like he's hitting a lot harder in there with 2 knockout wins in his last 2 fights over Harris and Overeem. So I don't necessarily see somebody getting finished in this fight, but People probably aren't going to want to hear this, but I think Volkov's the harder hitter. I don't think Gane hits all that hard. Gane's going to be somebody that wants to stay on the outside, use his movement, get on his bike, and that's kind of why he has that 69% strike and defense, and it definitely works out for him. I'm just curious to see how it works against a guy like Volkov, who's going to have, a bunch of reach, 80-inch reach. He's going to be able to come forward. He's going to pressure. And I'm curious to see how Gane reacts to that, especially in the small cage, which getting into the small cage a little bit, you got to think, like, I think the smaller cage favors a guy like Volkov and, doesn't favor a guy like Gane. Gane's going to want to stay on the outside. He's going to want to move, where you have Volkov, who's going to, in this fight, he's going to want to close the distance, limit that range of Gane, so he's not able to, stick and move as good as he usually does. So small cage is something to think about for sure. Volkov, we touched on it. He has been submitted 2 times, but you mentioned it. He got submitted, 11 and 12 years ago. So we'll touch on the ground game in a little bit, but I don't see anybody getting subbed in this fight. If anything, I can see maybe like a knockout, like a late knockout. But to be honest, I would be kind of shocked if there was a finish in this fight. And I do see it probably going to decision. But with that said, if there is a finish, I do think that it's going to be Volkov getting the finish, believe it or not.
I tend to agree with you there, because it looks like Gane has more ways to finish the fight, but the guys that he's subbing are not high-level, guys. So, we have to take that with a grain of salt. And you talked about the small cage. When you got a small cage, it's gonna favor the fighter that pressures, right? If you're going to be on your bike and backing up and moving, there's not as much room to move in a cage like that. So I do think that it'll be Volkov who will be pressuring in this fight. So I think that does the advantage is there. But the grappling statistics tell a pretty interesting tale in my opinion here, and we went over it already a little bit in Stat Diggers, but let's get into it here. We got Ciryl Gane has attempted 19 takedowns in 5 fights. So he's averaging about 4 takedown attempts per fight, which is a decent amount for a heavyweight. Wrestling is tiring. And he's gotten only 5 of them, though, for a 26.32% takedown percentage. While Volkov has only attempted 10 takedowns in 9 fights, so just about 1 takedown attempt per fight. He doesn't try to offensively wrestle. But when he does, he gets them because he's taking people down at a 70% clip. So, just on those numbers, you see that Volkov has got 2 more takedowns than Ciryl Gane, and he's got 9 less attempts. So, there's one guy here that's more efficient when he actually does choose to take people down. And since Volkov isn't spamming takedowns regularly, when he does shoot them, he seems to get them. So we see that Volkov is getting 0.82 takedowns per 15 minutes, Ciryl Gane 1.13. And neither one of these guys are control time monsters. As Gane's getting 11.62% control time, and Volkov is getting only 7.53% control time. So on the defensive side, in the 5 fights that Gane's had, he's faced 3 takedown attempts, and none of them have been successful. So he's got 100% takedown defense. He's never been taken down. He's never had a submission attempt against him. And something that's really interesting here, look at that control time against. 0.08% of his time in the cage. And just, can you go over to the advanced stats for a second here? If we go over to the totals here, and we scroll up to the top for Gane, if we go to the cage time totals, he's spent 3,992 seconds in the UFC cage, and he has been controlled 3 seconds. That's crazy. Only 3 seconds in 5 fights have his opponents either managed to get his ass on the ground or put his back up against the cage. And that's important because you don't ever see a number like that unless somebody is just incredibly athletic. If they have perfect footwork, if they want to kickbox and they want to keep it at kickboxing range, I mean, I don't know if anybody's really done it better than this guy so far. I mean, Gane 3 seconds out of 3,992. He's been controlled. This guy can keep the fight standing as long as he wants to, and when he wants to take his opponents down, he can, because he's got, he's gotten 5 takedowns in 5 fights, so he's getting more than 1 per 15 minutes. So I think it's a testament to Gane's athleticism that the best thing that we can see in the numbers that shows how athletic this guy is that 0.08% control time against. And then we see, so if people think that Gane is going to try to take Volkov down, they should note Alexander Volkov's takedown defense and see that in 9 UFC fights, Volkov has had 56 takedowns attempted against him. So if Cyril Gane comes in with a takedown-heavy plan, this for sure won't be the first time that Volkov has seen that. It's something that he's seen before, and it speaks to the experience advantage that he does have in this fight. 41 fights to Gane's 8. And we know how exhausting wrestling is. Offensive wrestling is exhausting, especially when you're not getting the takedowns. And trying to take down somebody that, in Alexander Volkov, that's listed at 6'7", but is probably more like 6'9", 6'10", it's a fool's errand. The only one that was really successful in taking Gane down was Blades, taking Volkov down was Blades. And Blades, in his fight, had 14 of 25. He attempted 25 takedowns, But in the other fights where a bunch of takedowns were attempted, he had 9 takedowns attempted against him by Verdum, and Verdum got 3 of them. And then in his first 2 fights in the UFC, he had 8 takedowns attempted against him, and both of his opponents only got 1 of them. So if we throw out the Blades fight, this guy's got something like 85% takedown defense. So the people who are saying that Gane is going to be able to win some rounds with the wrestling, I disagree with that. I don't see this guy Volkov being taken down and controlled by Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane's a kickboxer first. He's got takedowns because he's athletic, but I don't see him taking down Volkov here. Volkov has been taken down 2.22 times per 15 minutes, but like I say, we throw out that Blades fight, and then you're talking about 8 UFC fights, and he's only been taken down 5 times. That's not really much of a path to victory. I don't think Gane is going to use his energy that way, especially in a 5-round fight. He's going to have to make choices about how he uses his gas tank. Both of these guys have great conditioning. I don't think it would be a good idea for Cyril Gane to use a lot of offensive wrestling in this fight, because I don't think that he'll be successful with it.
Yeah, I'd be kind of shocked if either guy really went for a takedown here. Maybe Gane, shoots a takedown or 2, but you mentioned it. Volkov, his takedown defense, I think, is very underrated, I think, because, Curtis Blades took him down 14, 15 times. That people think his takedown defense maybe sucks, but again, it's Curtis Blades, the best wrestler in the division. And, as far as, Volkov's ground game, like, a lot of people don't know this, but he is a legit brown belt in BJJ. His grappling is ever so improving. Yes, he's been submitted twice, but those were both over 10 years ago. And I just don't really see Gane having an advantage in, taking Volkov down. Like, that would really surprise me. Maybe it can happen, but I'd be really surprised if Gane, A, took down Volkov, and B, held him down for a long period of time. I just think this is going to play out on the feet primarily, 25 minutes or maybe up until a finish. I'm leaning more towards it going the full distance here, but I'd be kind of surprised if either guy did get a takedown here. But if there's somebody to do it, it probably is Gane. But even then, if he does, I think it's only going to, hurt his gas tank, especially in a 5-round fight, like you mentioned. If he does not get those takedowns, it's going to really have an effect on his gas tank, I think. So I think the game plan is going to be kind of, what he usually does: stick and move, stay on the outside, try to pick apart Volkov, and win a decision there. So very, very interesting stats there in terms of the takedown defense between, especially the Volkov side, because people try to take him down, and people try to take him down a lot. But like you mentioned, take out the Blades fight, it's up near that 85%. So I don't think there's nothing to worry about there.
Agree. Yeah, that's the way I see it. And if I do see these guys attempting takedowns, hopefully it would be them being smart. Maybe with 40 seconds left in a round, you try to get a takedown to try to seal a close round. And I could see Volkov or Gane doing that. But I just think in a 5-round fight, it'd be a really bad use of energy for either of these guys to try to take the fight to the ground when neither one of them, I don't think, is going to win it down there. I think this fight's going to be won and lost on the feet. And So now let's look at those strength of schedule numbers and look at the UFC competition that these guys have faced and see if we can find a difference there. And when we look at the ratio here, we see Gane with that 2.15 ratio, very impressive. In 8.2 total fights too. He's facing an average record of 5.6 wins and 2.6 losses. And Volkov in his 9 fights, we see a 1.7 ratio, but 15 total fights, 9.44 wins, 5.56 losses. So what's important to note here is that Jairzinho Rozenstruik's got an excellent record, and Junior Dos Santos actually has a pretty good record even still. Even though he lost, like, I think his last 5 fights or something like that, he's still like 15-8, you know? So that win over Dos Santos is a little bit overrated simply because Dos Santos was at the end of his career. And even the way that he won that fight by, you know, hitting him in the back of the head was a little bit suspect. But, you know, Gane was going to win that fight no matter what anyway. So, it's pointless to kind of talk about how he won the fight. He was going to win it one way or another. Dos Santos had nothing for him. But, you know, when we see that 2.15 ratio as opposed to Volkov's 1.7, we got to remember Volkov is facing the better, the more experienced competition, and that he kind of caught Dos Santos at the end of his career. And Rozenstruik, I think, is like 5-2 or 6-2 in the UFC. So he's got like a 3 ratio. So it's the wins against Bozer, Mays, and Pessoa that, you know, I don't think there's any win on Volkov's record in the UFC that wouldn't be way more impressive than any of those first 3 wins for Gane. So, and then when you look at who Alexander Volkov has lost to in the UFC, we see cream of the crop competition here. 2 losses, 15 total fights, 3.29 win-to-loss ratio, average record of 11.5 wins, 3.5 losses. So we have to kind of figure, hey, does Cyril Gane fit into the mold of the type of fighter that's beating Alexander Volkov? Because the type of fighter that's beating Alexander Volkov is extremely experienced, you know, which is something that Gane isn't. So I see this strength of schedule and last 5 really playing out for Volkov. But, you know, before we see those 5 on the screen, but, you know, it's Overeem, Harris, Blades, Hardy, Lewis. Those are top names. But then before that, former champion Fabricio Verdum. And he beat him, and he knocked him out in the 4th round and went to the ground with him several times and survived there. So people who are thinking that Cyril Gane's going to take Alexander Volkov down and submit him, guess what? Verdum couldn't do it. So that's something you should probably think that don't count on that. If you're on Gane, be on Gane for the right reasons, thinking that he's going to, you know, outmove him, out athletic him, pot shot him, point fight him, and fight smart. But if you think that, you know, this guy is going to get submitted by Cyril Gane when Struve couldn't submit him, one of the, you know, submission record holders in the UFC, when Verdum couldn't submit him, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and Roy Nelson. I mean, even Timothy Johnson was his first fight. He's a great wrestler. He's got a great ground game. You know, none of these guys dominated Volkov on the ground, so Gane isn't either. Do you feel the same way about that?
125%. I don't really see Gane, having much success with the ground game at all. But I mean, yeah, you take a look at the experience and the level of competition, and I think a big thing to point out, and you did talk about it a little bit, that you take a look at Volkov's 2 UFC losses. Derek Lewis, somebody that has, you know, some of the best power in the UFC division or UFC heavyweight division. And then you have Curtis Blades, who has the best wrestling in the heavyweight division. And like you mentioned, does Cyril Gane, you know, fit that mold of a guy that's going to go in there and beat Volkov? Is that, you know, the same type of guy that is beating Volkov? But I don't know. I mean, I don't think he has, you know, devastating power. I don't think he has, you know, really good wrestling, at least enough wrestling to threat Volkov on the mat. But what Gane does have is something different between like a Blades or a Lewis. He has, extreme athletic ability. The guy is very fast. He's going to have a speed advantage. He has a lot of volume as well for a heavyweight. He has great cardio for a heavyweight. So I do think he does pose some problems to Volkov. But like I said, I mean, Volkov has only lost to Derek Lewis and Curtis Blades, two of the best fighters in the heavyweight division.
You can see a path to victory for sure for Gane on the feet. I mean, like, he's been incredibly impressive. The guy's, such a plus athlete for this division. His physique, his ability to be able to move that physique, his speed, his footwork. These are, if he uses all those things perfectly, Gane can absolutely win this fight against Volkov and win a kickboxing match with him. It's definitely in the cards. But I think one of the reasons that Gane is as big of a favorite as he is that people are thinking that he's a better grappler than Volkov, and I don't see it. The numbers don't show it, and that's something that we need to temper our expectations on. If we're honest about both these guys' paths to victory, I think we can get a really clear picture of how this fight might play out. I think it's going to play out really close, because I don't see it really going to the ground very much. And it's going to be that footwork and diversity of strike, attack, and speed of Gane versus the pressure, the length, and I think the superior power of Volkov. And then it's going to really kind of come down to, Gane's ability to switch stances and keep Volkov, guessing. And, Volkov, to put together a game plan that's going to, give Gane a look that he hasn't seen in his 8 professional fights yet. And I'm not sure what he needs to do in order to achieve that goal. But I think if you really want to break this down in a high-level way like we are, you really got to look at who's going to win this striking battle.
Yep, 100% agree. And yeah, you brought it up a little bit that you take a look at the line, and honestly, I'm kind of shocked, man. I mean, breaking it down with you, going over all the stats, going into the experience, looking at the fight as a whole, you take a look at the line and you have Cyril Gane as a minus 185 favorite, minus 175, come back on Volkov plus 160, plus 150. And it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I know he's hyped up. I know a lot of people like the guy. I like the guy. I think he's very, very talented, but this is obviously going to be the toughest test of his career. And, we went through the stats, we went through the experience, went through the finish stats and all that. And, a lot of the stats are similar, but what really sticks out to me is going to be the experience. 41 fights for Alexander Volkov compared to Cyril Gane's 8. I think that is very, very important. But yeah, I mean, Gane is a very talented fighter. I think he's going to have the athletic advantage, the speed advantage. But man, Volkov's been looking good. He's been looking very good since that Curtis Blades fight. Like I said, he's packing on some weight. There's more pop on his punches. He's coming forward. 2 knockout wins in a row. I'm not saying he knocks out Gane, but the smaller cage, I do like that for Volkov. I think he's going to be able to close the distance, pressure, and I'm curious to see how Gane reacts to a good fighter with really good volume. He just fought Rosenstruck, who barely threw anything in that fight at all. And we just fought Junior Dos Santos, who, like you said, is towards the end of his career. A Tanner Bozer, who has pillow fist for the heavyweight division. Dontel Mays, Rafael Pessoa. But this is going to be easily the biggest test of Cyril Gane's career. And, I think he could win. There's a path to victory. It's just, man, I do not see in any aspect of this fight where Volkov's this big of an underdog. I think it should be a pick 'em. And honestly, maybe even Volkov a slight favorite, according to the experience. The experience edge and the experience gap is just so massive to me.
That's the point. We've looked at all the stats, and, when you look at the striking stats, there's not a big difference there. When you look at the finish stats, Gane's been more diverse, by getting just as many submissions as knockouts. But, 8 fights compared to 41 for Volkov. And Volkov's been knocking dudes out for a long time. So, the things that stick out like a sore thumb to me are Volkov has got way more experience and has fought a way more diverse and a way better brand of opponents and beaten a better brand of opponents. And he's lost to guys that Gane's not quite, he hasn't proven that he's on a Blades level yet. He hasn't proven that he's on, Derek Lewis's level yet. So, it sticks out to me that, I would think that Volkov would be minus 120, and maybe Gane, plus 100, plus 105, something like that. So, I think there's a lot of value in this Volkov line. I don't see how I don't bet him in this spot because, even if this is a striking battle, I think it's 50-50. I really do. And the numbers are telling me that if people think that Gane's got a grappling advantage, I think they're mistaken. So I think the value here is on Volkov. I'm calling it for Volkov. I think you want to bet the over, or you want to bet that this fight's probably going to go to decision. Gane moves so well and he's so athletic, and both of these guys have such excellent conditioning. And neither one of them are quitters that we know of. So I think betting the over or the fight goes to decision is a really solid bet. But, man, I think there's a ton of value on Volkov.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think of this as, a 50-50 fight, maybe slight advantage to Volkov based off the experience. But as far as the fight goes, I can see it going either way. So you're giving me a plus 160 price tag on the dog and a fight that, probably goes the distance, a fight that probably honestly comes down to like a split decision. I think it's to be that close. But, as a whole, the fight, it's tough to call. It's tough to call. I think it's a very well-matched fight. I think it's a very, very good test for Cyril Gane to see where he's really at. Because Volkov, I think he's one of the most underrated fighters in the heavyweight division. A lot of people sleep on this guy. A lot of people think he has pillow fist. A lot of people think he sucks on the mat and all that good stuff. But no, I think he's very underrated. And I'm really excited to see this fight play out. And yeah, you mentioned the values on Volkov. I think everybody, for the most part, can admit that the values on Volkov. But I do see a lot of love for Gane out there, and I get it. Very hyped prospect, and for a very good reason. The guy is 100% legit, but this will be his toughest test by a decent margin in Alexander Volkov. And you mentioned the fight goes to decision line is sitting at minus 105. The over-under is not out yet, but I'm assuming they're going to set it just based off of the fight goes to decision line, maybe at 4.5 rounds, potentially 3.5 rounds. So I'm with you. I do like the over. I do like the fight goes to decision. Really would be kind of surprised if there was a finish, but I'm with you. I'm going to take Alexander Volkov. Again, it's a very tough fight to predict. It's a very, very close fight. I feel like it can go either way. But what doesn't make sense to me is going to be that line. And hey, I mean, we could be proven wrong. I mean, this could be a one-sided beatdown from Cyril Gane. Maybe he takes him down nonstop, but I would be completely shocked if Cyril Gane does look minus 160, minus 170, minus 180 in this fight.
Couldn't agree more, man. I'm on the Volkov side here. I'm fine with that. We got to look for value. We go this deep into the numbers so that we can find paths to victory, so we can find strengths, we can find weaknesses. And when you really look into the numbers here, you don't see a whole lot of difference on the feet. And, and I don't see a path to victory for either guy on the ground. So, yeah, I think this should be lined a lot closer. I think there's a ton of value on Volkov. I'm going to be betting Volkov for sure, man.
Yep, I definitely agree. But yeah, we're going to head out. I thought we broke it down pretty good. I think we touched on, basically every single aspect of this fight. And that's kind of what I love about this breakdown is we get so deep, man. I mean, I'm not used to going this deep onto matchups, but it's fun doing it. It's really fun doing it, taking a look at, aspect after aspect of the fight. And, it was fun breaking it down with you. But yeah, tune in to going to be doing my full card breakdown and prediction video out on Tuesday morning. Of course, live stream on Friday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Live stream on Saturday, 1 hour prior to the prelims, which I think the fights start really early this week, which kind of sucks because it's my birthday on the card. So I'm probably going to be like partying it up at like 12 o'clock at noon. So that's going to be fun. But yeah, Uncle Weezy, I'll kick it to you. Let them know where they can find you. I know you're doing a lot of content on your channel. Let them know where you can find you, man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for kicking it over to me, and happy birthday to you coming up this week, dude. What better way to celebrate your birthday by cashing every fucking bet we make this week? So let's cash some tickets. Let's make some money. You can check me out at my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. I do what I call balls deep breakdowns on several fights every week. I did 3 fights last week. I've already done the Nchekwu Marquez fight for this week, and I'm planning a few more. I'll probably do Moicano Herbert. I'd love to do Barcelos Valiev, and Means Dalby would be a great one to do as well. So come check me out on my channel. I appreciate you guys watching us. And anybody that comes to my channel, you can download the matchup templates that I make every week, which you see on the screen right there. You can download them for free when you watch my videos. So I'd appreciate you guys to come over and check out my videos too, man. And happy birthday, Brady. Happy Father's Day out there, everybody. And thanks for having me on to do the breakdown, man.
Thanks, man. I mean, I hope it's a happy birthday. Hopefully cash some tickets. But yeah, I forgot to point out, if you guys do like this type of breakdown, this concept on Pub Sports Radio, we do a show called Stat Diggers where we go fight by fight by fight, doing basically this kind of in a more condensed version, but still we go, balls deep into it. So that's about it. If you guys can leave a like on the video, also subscribe to the channel, it'll be much, much appreciated. And good luck at UFC Vegas